by a number of guests who the conversation has already started on our Kickstarter, but we're going to be getting into it shortly. And one thing that did happen over the weekend is that on NTV we did run a story about a gentleman, Isaac Epenu, who is currently taking care of his one child born preterm, and the mother of the child did abandon him. Now you're going to take a look at this story before we get into the conversation about preterm births in Uganda.
26 February 2019 will always be celebrated by 36-year-old Isaac Epenu, because that is the day his son Paris was born in a clinic on Salama Road in Kampala's Makindye division. The baby was a premature at 7 months, and he needed specialized care if he was to survive. That's why the newborn baby and his mother were referred to Kawempe General Referral Hospital. 2 days later, the baby's mother abandoned him in the hospital.
It was my return that I was told by the doctors that the mother of the baby was last seen yesterday. That was 12 midnight. It so happened the mother didn't appear the next day again. The next day made a week made 2 weeks. Now that's when I started having thoughts that maybe the mother had dumped the baby for me.
As Epenu narrated his harrowing tale, he could not hold his tears back because of the pain he went through over the 1.5 months he spent in the hospital looking after a son he feared might die in time.
When I saw premature children, a number of them losing their lives, in my heart I was like, maybe then mine could be next. A situation that really touched me so much.
During his stay in the hospital, Epenu was the only man taking care of a baby, and he had become a bit of a curiosity.
It was through that process that I officially decided to say, I'm not going to leave this place, and not until the baby's condition is okay. But I had to wake up even at the night, every after 2 hours, to go and feed the baby, and also during the course of the day. Yeah, I recorded a couple of deaths of women who were struggling to deliver their children, and I actually experienced a woman who gave birth almost in front of me.
Epenu and baby Paris were discharged from the hospital on Wednesday, 2 weeks before Paris made 9 months. Epenu was a music producer employed by a local production studio, but he lost his job because he had to devote his entire life to taking care of baby Paris.
Come on,
Taking care of his son is a full-time occupation for Epenu. For example, he has to be at hand to feed baby Paris every 2 hours.
A daily routine, actually, that every after 2 hours I have to attend to the baby. I have to steer milk for this baby. I have to wear him diapers. I have to wash his clothes. It's quite a challenge, it's tough.
To date, the whereabouts of Paris's mother have never been established, and Epenu says he will do what it takes to make sure his son grows to a healthy baby.
If it were her decision to dump the baby and go, I would caution her to go and find that baby that she left in the hospital, because that's where she left the baby. I don't think, now that this baby is in my hands and I've taken care of this baby through thick and thin, where the mother herself was more needed.
Now, Epenyo is a resident of Nsambya in Makindye division in Kampala, where he narrated his harrowing story of the pain he goes through to step in the shoes of a mother. Now, the baby boy, his only child, who is called Baby Paris, was discharged from hospital after 1 month and halfway stay in the women's labor ward of Kawempe Hospital. This story has generated a heated debate on whether or not Epenyo should be hailed for quitting his job to take care of his baby. So this morning we have a women's rights activist, whether Epenyo deserves the heroic treatment he has received so far, and a consultant pediatrician to fill also those gaps on the kind of medical care needed for such a baby. Because currently within our country, less than 30,000 preterm births annually are recorded within Uganda. First of all, we'll start by introducing Dr. Sabrina Chitaka. She is a consultant pediatrician. You're most welcome to Morning at NTV. And next to her is Mr. Julius Chisembo. He's a women's rights activist from ACFOD. And next to him is Miss...
You're welcome.
And next to him is Miss Barbara Among. She has actually had a preterm child, a preterm birth. The child is now 3 years of age. Just last week she made 3 years,
Yeah,
which is amazing.
Week, yeah.
Which it shows that actually children that are born preterm can survive.
Yes, they can survive.
And now you offer support to a number of mothers that go through this.
Yes, I do.
We'll start by the conversation asking what the story of Isaac Epenyo evokes for you, each of you. I'll start with you, a mother who has been through this.
As someone who's been through this, I really identify with him. I feel his pain. I know what it means to lose a job, because you're staying in the hospital much longer than your maternity leave actually guarantees, because the law in Uganda does not cater for preterm mothers. Once your maternity leave ends, either you lose your job or you go back to work and leave the baby in the hospital. And it's not a choice that you should force a parent to actually make. So it's a very painful choice that you make. You need the money as a parent of a preterm, because it's very expensive in this country to raise a preterm child, and yet on the other hand you have to let go of your job. It's a very difficult experience. Even to say it's tough is an understatement. It's a very difficult. It's prolonged stress that is going to go through, because it's what preterm parents go through. So I really identify with him. It's quite difficult and it's a very painful experience.
Okay, what about you, Mr. Julius?
Good morning, our listeners. The story of Mr. Epenyo is really touching, because it looks at rights, violation of rights. The Ugandan Constitution guarantees freedoms and rights to everyone. First of all, this preterm is also entitled to the right of living, the right of care. I want to applaud Mr. Epenyo for standing in for both the mother and the father. As a human rights defender and activist, I really have issues with the mother that could have abandoned this baby at this time of need. Possibly we'll need a deeper conversation about what could have caused this. Looking at the last moment here may give us different results. However, we at ACFOD and many other human rights activists do not condone violence, whether orchestrated or done by a man or a woman. We call it gender-based violence. It's either a man, a woman, boy, or a girl. The good thing is that the Ugandan Constitution still creates a mechanism of punishment. It actually criminalizes violence in the Constitution and in the Domestic Violence Act 2010. That whatever could have happened in the violation of somebody's rights is punishable. Thank you.
Thank you too. Now, Doctor, bringing you in on this as a consultant pediatrician, a number of times preterm births are something that you have been well conversant with. A situation like this, on the medical side, it's already difficult. But now for Isaac, you've seen him having to go home. He's now taking care of the child on his own. What comes to mind for you?
So 2 things came into my mind. One was, poor baby Paris. I hope he really survives. The other thing that touched me a lot was seeing a father crying. Dads are supposed to be tough. And it just, emphasized the need for the mom to be present. I'm not sure why mom left. It's possible she had puerperopsychosis.
What could that be?
Like some women get confused, depressed after giving birth, but to give birth to a preterm and understand the consequences maybe could have led her to run away. But for no reason should any mother abandon her baby. And I really sympathize or empathize with Isaac. And my first thoughts were, where can we take this baby in the interim so that this man can go back to work and the baby can be taken care of properly? I appreciate that he's being a good dad and he's struggling, but dads were not meant to be nurturers. He's struggling with the feeding bottles. The baby could easily choke and all that. He's stressed, he needs to work. And so my thoughts were, perhaps it would be nice for this baby to be taken to a home. And I actually contacted one home. And so if the process can happen, maybe Paris would be kept in a place where he can be comfortable until the dad is stable.
Okay. Now, one thing that I believe across this table is the fact that a support group is very necessary in a situation like this. Because before we get into the support group, one of the bits of the support group could be the hospital itself, the care that is given after the child is born. We'll start with you on what it was like having given birth. I don't know, how many weeks were you?
29 weeks.
29 weeks. And you were in hospital. How was the experience for you, and where did the hospital come in?
What happened is that it was on the 20th of February, actually, after elections 2006. And in the afternoon, all that I felt tired. I just felt tired. And so I told myself, let me go to the nearby clinic, check my blood pressure and see if it's okay. So when I got to the clinic and checked my blood pressure, the midwife who checked me told me, do you know where your doctor is? I was like, yes, I know. She was like, don't even go home, take a border, go to the hospital right now because your blood pressure is so high. And she told me it's 160, I think, over 120, I think 121 or 122 at the time. So she's like, don't go home. So I didn't take her seriously because I thought, all I felt was I felt tired. So I actually went home, picked my bag and took a taxi. I didn't take a border as she had said because I felt it was dangerous. So I took a taxi to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, the midwife who first checked me was like, did you come walking? I was like, yes. I was like, you're lucky you're alive. Your pressure is hitting 200. I was like, are you sure? So immediately I was admitted, and they injected me, and I went to sleep. So it was about 6 in the evening. So I slept, I woke up around midnight, and he told me, yes, your pressure is coming down. It's very high, the gyno told me we cannot touch you right now. If we touch you right now, we will lose both you and the baby. So she talked to my aunties, my friends, people who had really gathered around, and told them, give me time to manage this lady, to control her blood pressure before we remove the baby. So she actually managed to control. So I stayed that night. That was on the 20th, 21st. I stayed in the hospital. So after 3 days, my blood pressure actually went down. They told me, oh, now you can go home. I was like, really? She was like, yeah, let's do one final test. When they did the test, they realized the blood pressure had drained all the fluids around the baby. She held my hand and walked with me straight to the theater. I didn't have time for anything and all that. And eventually my baby was removed. And she was 29 weeks.
What weight was she?
She was 1.6 kilograms. And they were saying really she was really big because most prematures are in grams. She was 1.6 kilograms. And so for me, as soon as they got the baby out, that's the last thing I remembered because I blacked out. What I remembered is they were pressing my heart. And then so when I woke up, so that was around 7:30 or 8 in the evening when I was taken to the theater. So the following day, I woke up at around 2 a.m. in the morning. And So then in the morning, they told me, you know, you need to see your baby. My baby was in an incubator. Very small. That was the first shock that I got. I think her thigh was her thigh was the size of my thumb. Really, really small. And I cried. That was the first thing. I looked at this tiny thing and I cried. So they started then telling me about a premature baby. And I don't think I even listened, because all this time I was just crying, because I'm like, is this baby going to survive? How am I going to manage? What's going to happen? It was totally like a new thing. It was like the first time I'm giving birth. This was my second born, but it was like the first time I'm giving birth. Everything was 100% new. They're telling me the baby's on oxygen. I was trying to understand what it means to have a child on oxygen. They're telling me we'll need to check the heart. I was trying to understand. They're saying they are not fully developed. The organs are not fully developed. We need like so many checkups, so many, one after another. And it was stressful. It was expensive. It was just difficult. That was the beginning of my prolonged stress, because every day you don't know what's going to happen. Every day you don't know if this baby is going to survive. And stayed in the hospital for a month, and the baby was in an incubator. As a mother, when you give birth, you want to carry your baby. I'm not able to carry my baby. I could just carry my baby through the glass, you know, watch her through the glass. I couldn't breastfeed my baby. I was feeding her through the tubes, because the jaws were not fully developed enough to suckle. So she would suckle 1-2 times and she's tired. So the best was to feed her through the tubes. I would hold my baby at times and see the veins, because the skin was so transparent. You're seeing the veins, you're seeing this, but you just don't know what to do every single day. Yeah, you just don't know.
And that's when you bring in Dr. Chitaka, because you mentioned one thing is that the delivery of the news on the part of the health system also seems to be something. And I see Mr. Julius nodding his head, and we'll be getting into that. But the delivery of the news, of them telling her, get onto a border, go right now, you know, the way they say these things.
Shocked. Like, how do you put a mother who has severe hypertension on a border? A border is like hypertensive enough. Like, how? I think sometimes people be callous. Like, how do you even say that? So I'm sorry that happened to you, but thank God you survived. And there's a class that we need to give to healthcare providers, because we are in the service industry. We need to learn how to communicate with our clients. We need to learn how to break bad news. I have a relative who was told, guess what, you're carrying twins. And she went into labor, preterms. And these were even smaller than yours. One was 0.8 kilograms, and the bigger child was 900 grams. But now they are big boys now. They are now in senior 3, and we keep laughing about that entire situation.
But also walking the parents through the whole entire system, because when she says she's seeing her child on oxygen, she didn't know the heart rate. She wasn't sure of all these things. Exactly. So how do we tell a parent who's maybe expecting and trying to say that if at all it happens in this kind of situation, your child can survive?
Yes. You know, the health system is overwhelmed, and much as you would have needed to have a counselor, a nurse who's off duty to speak to you calmly, and but the health system is extremely stretched. I'm not sure where you went to deliver, but it would have been nice for the entire support system to be present, because giving birth to a preterm, I'm sure, is a nightmare. But even seeing a baby in the incubator, on tubes, on IV lines, being fed, every so often, can be overwhelming. Even medical students get overwhelmed
when they look at
preterms. Yes. But how about a mom who has never seen anything like this?
And also to the men. This is when we bring in Mr. Julius, because I see him nodding, and I believe you have something to say about our health system, and also where the role comes in for a man, because a number of times we hear of the woman being the nurturer, but then there's also the man that comes in somewhere.
Thank you very much. I want to applaud the two participants, what they have done and have said. One, the doctor has just answered my question. I wanted to see, is there someone who did not do his part? like in the health sector, because who prepares the mothers? There should have been enough preparation, and they are prepared for any eventuality. And then too, why I was also nodding is that for us at ACFOD and many other human rights activists, we support what we call women movements. Building up of these movements will help, because I am also seeing a problem with the budgeting. How much budget do we have in the Ministry of Health maybe to cater for this? It could be a general medical budget, but we have these specialized incidences. Who is to take them on? So that's why I was nodding. I was saying there's something still missing, Doctor, that our budget is not yet responsive to some of these issues that might seem to be new, but they are not new, they are old. Then the other thing also was is about the stress and the confusion. Really, Doctor, we need mothers to be helped right from the start. We need health practitioners, those service providers, also to be initiated and also be put into the program, that when such a thing happens, you don't blow it aboard. Your work is really to not sympathize, but to empathize with this kind of situation. Remember, the preterm is also a human being who has rights. Now, who is going to defend those rights? Now, you asked me about the man's involvement. Like I said, I want to applaud Mr. Epenu. He's one of the men that stood out to say, I must show that it is possible. When we talk about, at ACFOD, we talk about equality. And the equality we're talking about is how can we share out responsibilities? Where is justice for all of us? Is each of us doing his own role? Mr. Pen, thank you so much. At that time, irrespective of what happened, why the mother abandoned the kid, which we have just said, all of us, that is wrong, and we condemn it. No amount of activity can result into a mother abandoning a child. That's violence. But a pen who comes it at the right time is the right substitute. He says, I am going to take up the roles of a parent. I am appealing to many of us men to come out and take these roles. A pen is still a gentleman, he's still a man, he's not a woman. But you see, he has done the roles of a mother. So that's what we call gender. Yeah. That the society has given us roles that otherwise we are not supposed to be ours in the general outlook, but we can do them. So that's why we are saying, can we help each other? Maybe this woman, this is what she lacked at the beginning, that help, that assurance that this one will be there is what she lacked from both the medical practitioners, maybe even from Mr. Peno. I don't know how much he visited or how much he took time to care for his wife who was pregnant, could have also been there. And thirdly, who was there really to bring down the stress and the pressures. But otherwise, Mr. Peno is a hero in this incident as of now, because a child has life. He intervened. Yes. How many of us can do that? Men, take up that role. Be friends, be supporters, be companions of your wives, of your girlfriends. Because remember, in the first instant, you really took time to make a relationship. Yes. Can it be real? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Julius. Now, bring in taking the care of a preterm birth and what exactly goes into it. This is when we need you, doctor, to just walk someone through it. Because as we speak about all these things, the oxygen, the incubator, the fact that the child needs to be fed through tubes, and what happens after, when do they now say they are clear, they can go home? All these things, if you could just walk us through that.
Thank you so much. First of all, we need to make some definitions clear. Who is a preterm? A preterm is any baby that is born after 28 weeks, but before 37 weeks. And so this is a delicate child. First of all, their immune system is not yet mature, and they are prone to getting infections. They are really tiny, so they are prone to also getting hypoglycemia or low blood sugar. They can become hypothermic. That means they are extremely cold. Because their mucous membranes are friable, they can get into complications like necrotizing enterocolitis. That means they don't have enough oxygen, and so their feeding tract can become necrotized or ill and friable. But also they can get other complications. They can easily bleed. They are too small to get vaccinated, so they are prone to getting certain infections. Their lungs are not yet mature, and sometimes they need to be given surfactant or corticosteroids to improve how they are breathing. And that's why they need to be on oxygen. But also, even as we put them on oxygen, we have to be very careful, because the oxygen can damage their eyesight, and they can get many complications: feeding, choking, eventually bleeding into the brain, getting seizures, their brain failing to grow, and so they need to be taken care of very, very carefully. Their electrolytes can become imbalanced at any one time, and the electrolytes are things like magnesium, calcium, and all the rest of it, so you have to keep monitoring this baby. And that's why they need to be in a high-level intensive care unit, which we call a NICU, or a neonatal intensive care unit. And this NICU has to be cared for by super specialized people, neonatologists, neonatal nurses, and these are very few in our country. So you end up having to use the mom as a co-aid, as a nursing aid, which shouldn't be the case really. But as I said, our health system is overwhelmed, and preterms are not about to disappear. There are many causes of prematurity. She mentioned hypertension, but there's also, if a mom has fibroids, if a mom has incompetent cervix, if mom gets malaria, if she gets an infection, all these can predispose the baby to coming out early. If the baby is a multiple pregnancy, like twins or more than 5, I heard you talking in the news, mom had 5 babies.
Yes.
But yes, so there are many causes of prematurity, and like we said, nearly 30,000 babies are born preterm, and they need to be catered for. Sometimes before we discharge these babies from the hospital, they have to be of a certain weight. The minimum should be 1 kilogram, but they should be a stable preterm. They are breathing on their own, they're able to tolerate the feeds, they don't throw up the feeds when they are given the feeds, and also that the mom has learned how to take care of this baby. There's something called kangaroo care, that the baby should be kept skin to skin with the mother so that they bond, so that they keep warm and all those things.
But then as you talk about all of this, it begs the question about the expenses. Yes, because it doesn't come cheap right now. I don't believe it was. Do you remember the cost of having to look after your child?
Yeah, it was 7 million shillings.
Okay. Now there's a lady who recently in the news, she shared about how each day they were charging her up to 2 million Uganda shillings. Unfortunately, she lost her child after
which was
that.
really sad. But I want to tell you that in many of our public health institutions, Mulago for one, we don't charge anything to take care of these babies. So if you're a mom and you're not financially stable, it's not wise for you to be going to a very expensive NICU, because these babies will survive even in the public sector. The important thing is for the baby to be monitored, have an incubator present.
And that's all that is necessary. But then one would say now there's formula, all these other expenses,
and
they're very unplanned.
I would go for breast milk other than formula, because formula is expensive. And premium formula is also expensive. So I would rather go for the low-hanging fruit, promote breastfeeding, ask for a breastfeeding nurse to support you. There are mothers out there who have loads of breast milk. And how about sharing? But to be cautious, not every mom can donate milk.
What do they need to look out for? As
infections, like if a mom has HIV, hepatitis B or C, if they're on drugs or any medication, they cannot donate the milk. But if they are not, they don't have any contraindications, this milk can be shared.
Okay. Now, there's one thing within our society when we hear of preterm births, and you mentioned a bit about how some people's cervix cannot actually be able to have a pregnancy to the full term, carry to full term. So sometimes you have a lady having maybe 3 births and they're all prematures. And our society's perception is there's something wrong with that woman. So I think I'll just like each and every one of us in this table to take time to speak to society about these births and how these children can go ahead to live normal lives after this point in time, and even become presidents and teachers later on.
Sure.
Yes, we'll start with you, Mr. Mong.
Yeah, preterm babies, like Dr. Sabrina has said, they're quite. It's challenging to raise them. She mentioned. Sorry to take you back. She mentioned kangaroo. Kangaroo is basically skin to skin. The mother's your upper body is completely naked. You're not having any clothes on. The baby is just in pampers, and then you put her on your chest, you know, close to your heart, because then your body temperature will help regulate her body temperature and keep it stable. Your heartbeat will also teach her how to breathe, teach her how to do so many things in addition to bonding, and also they said it helps in the brain development. So preterm, kangaroo mother care is the best cheaper alternative to incubators that mothers can actually use, both outside Kampala and anywhere else.
But that means
children in Karamoja, yes, children in Karamoja have survived because of kangaroo mother care, and so it's really very helpful. And if governments and all these other hospitals could champion that, would have many more survivors if we had so many people championing kangaroo mother care. Of course, it's sitting for hours. That's when daddies come in. You really need the father to be present, because you're going to sit in one place for 6-8 hours. Okay, you're supposed to do 2 hours rest, do 2 hours, but at times you want your baby to really gain weight and grow, so you sit much longer. So you need someone, if after 6 hours your butt is hurting, it's painful, you know, you've not had anything to eat because you're there with the baby, it's close to your chest. The other thing is that it's very costly, it's very expensive. And I wouldn't blame a mother who goes to a private hospital, because it's an emergency, really. It's emergency and you need the care. You want to save your baby. But I would like to tell society that premature babies or babies born before 9 months can grow to live a very healthy, normal life. Most of them are very brilliant. They're extremely brilliant, actually. If you look at people who are born preterm, they're very brilliant. Most of them are scientists, actually, if you look at them. They're very brilliant. My daughter is now 3 years old. She's doing everything. She's very talkative. She's running. She took long to... She started speaking at, I think, about 2 years. You know, she started walking after 1 year. You see, she started sitting at 8 months. They're delayed. Every milestone, they're delayed. They're not, their milestones is not the same as the milestone of a full-term baby. That's the baby born at 9 months. So you have to be patient with that. So your baby is going to sit at 8 months or 9 months or even 1 year. Don't be worried about that. Your baby is going to start walking maybe at even 2 years. Don't be worried about that. As long as she's gaining weight, she's developing normally and all that. Their feeding is different. It's extra care. That's why mothers lose jobs, because they can't leave their child in the hands of the maid. A maid cannot take care of a premature baby. It's you and you alone. So they grow up to be normal, healthy babies, as much as their milestones are delayed. So you should not condemn a parent of a preterm. They're already stressed. They're already anxious. They cannot perform the parental role the way a parent with a full-term child can perform. So you need to give them all the support that they need. Help them take away the stress by giving a hand. Okay, if you can allow her sleep for 2 hours, please sit in and allow her sleep for 2 hours. If you can sit in the hospital during the day while she is at work, please sit in the hospital for them during the day, and then they can come back in the evening and take over from there. So they need all the support that you can actually give them.
Okay, and briefly, Mr. Julius, as we're running out of time.
Okay, thank you very much. To the society, I will go straight to the society. Like we have told you, everybody has a right to live. We are asking society to look at preterms as babies that will grow into human beings. That it takes 2 parents, a mother and a father, to start the process, but it takes also a community to raise up a child. who are raised up by communities, and let them own these children. Let them desist from this belief of saying, my wife was bewitched, she has a bad omen. There is no bad omen. It is just an occurrence in life. The doctors and the mother here have just told you there are many preterms to come even. But we want that support from the community. I want that support to raise the monies, to raise the time. You can't sit for 8 hours. You need somebody to help you. Can the neighbors, can the sisters, can the brothers also come in? Can we come in as leaders to help to raise these children? Because there are so many things that go behind raising a child. It's not only breastfeeding or the monies, but also there's the time, there's the prayer, there is the respect for each other, there is really talking even with that. They need that comfort to keep off the stress. And the employers, finally, I am asking you employers to take also a considerate stand on some of these preterms. Maybe ask this person to take an unpaid leave. Okay? If you can give it to somebody who is bedridden 6 months, why can't you give it to a preterm parents for 6 months? I think I would ask that they change that so that they take longer time with their children. But at this time, Mr. Penu, give a stress-free situation for the parents. The mother, wherever you are, come up. You need counseling. You need to be talked to. You need to share. We don't know why you run away. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And Dr. lastly?
Yeah, I just want to say health center at least 8 times during their pregnancy. And if the baby is having complications or mom is having complications, then they can be detected early and the baby treated. And also when a baby is born preterm, it's not just about the mother, it's also about the father. And these babies are followed up in a preterm care clinic. We discharge them when they are about 2.5 years. Previously, we used to discharge them when they were 5 years, but because the system is overwhelmed, we discharge them at 2.5 when we are sure that A, they do not have cerebral palsy and that they don't have any other complications. It's also important for us to note that these babies have a chronological age and a true age. So even when they are delayed, it's not a problem. It's because they were born earlier, and so they are just catching up on their correct age. I have colleagues, medical doctors, who are preterms, but their moms separated from their fathers because they spent a long time in the hospital. So socially it's complicated when a mom gives birth to a preterm, but we all need to be supportive. And the other message I take from this conversation is healthcare providers need to learn how to communicate. Sometimes it's a problem of communication that makes people make difficult decisions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sabrina Chitaka. She is a consultant pediatrician. We're also joined by Mr. Julius Chisembo, who is a women's rights activist from ACFOD, and we also have Miss Barbara Among. She has shared her experience and right now is offering support to mothers who are going through this. Now, one thing you need to know from our conversation this morning, that the process of having a preterm child might be uncertain, it might be confusing, it might be stressful. One could even end up in depression, but you and I could be able to help them through this time. Well, now you know, and in case you have someone who's going through this, do be able to reach out. It could just be in time, it could be in you offering them emotional support. Pick out what you can and help them through this journey, because those children are able to live healthy lives after that situation. Well, that has been our conversation this morning on Kickstarter, and exactly 8 a.m. we're going to be giving you a look at what the roads are looking like along the Mulago roundabout with Stephen Mbide.
A very good morning to you. Thank you for watching NTV. This is Stephen Mbide coming to you live from Mulago Roundabout, just next to the Yusufa Road and Binaisa Road, as well as the road that is connecting you towards the Chira Road. If you know you're coming from the Gayaza Road or the other side of where I say that is along Bombo Road, connecting to the Kubidi Roundabout, that is where the maze begins from as you join this Mulago Roundabout. It's going to take you almost 15 minutes. That is the maximum time that will be delayed between the Kubidi roundabout as you connect towards this Mulago roundabout. But if you know you're heading towards Kamocha, Bokocho and areas beyond, after crossing this Mulago roundabout, just know that at least for you, it's less of congestion driving towards the Kamochia, and it's only at the entrance of Mulago Hospital that you'll be delayed for that's 1 or 2 minutes. Coming from Kamochia or Bukoto and areas beyond using the Chira Road, as you drive towards the Mulago roundabout, just know that it's the mess begins from that office of National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. You'll be losing there more time before you cross the Mulago roundabout, but still you have to wait for these few minutes as you connect towards the Wandegia side or Yusufe Road. As I told you, Yusufe Road is clear as you drive towards the other side of the fairway roundabout traffic lights, and as you connect towards Johnny Babiha Road, connecting you to Mulago, rather connecting you to Kololo, Chisement side is still clear, full of traffic. The same applies to you coming from Ginger Road, driving towards this roundabout of Mulago. Still less congestion, it's just less than 2 minutes for you waiting here. So that means if you're coming from Ginger Road, coming from industrial area or Upper Nakasero, don't need to worry about using Nakasero Road. It's all clear for now. And as you continue towards the city center, if you know you're coming from the Mulago roundabout, you can as well decide to use the John Babiha Road, the Yusuf, that Haji Musa Kasure Road, that is the road branching off near Ministry of Public Service, connecting you to Lumumba Avenue. That will be leading you towards the city square. You'll be losing less time compared to the one driving through Kampa Road after crossing the traffic lights of Wandegia. Coming from Wandegia, joining this Mulago roundabout is also almost 5 to 8 minutes of delay time. But the rest of the roads around this place, you'll be losing 1, 2, 3, or 5 minutes as you keep driving to wherever you're heading to. And if you know you're coming from Kalerwe and you're heading towards Kamocha,